Imagine an extra $495 just landing in your account.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a bonus. Or, hey, what about even hundreds more every single month?
We're going to do a deep dive today into some proposals that could put a lot more money directly in your hands.
Mm.
If you get Social Security, forget about trying to understand all those confusing headlines. We'll unpack these ideas, figure out how likely they are to actually happen, and what could all mean for your, you know, finances.
Yeah. Today we're zeroing in on proposals that could really boost your financial well-being as a Social Security recipient. One that's been making a lot of noise and what we're going to dissect today comes from the Senior Citizens League. They're suggesting a one-time payment of $495. So let's break down this $495 idea and see what it could mean for you guys. Our understanding is that this proposal comes from the fact that the Social Security Administration is working to recover a bunch of money from overpayments. The Senior Citizens League's thought process is pretty simple. If they recover a big chunk of this overpaid money, why not give it directly back to beneficiaries, like a one-time payment? So for you, our listeners, this means you could get an extra payment on top of your regular Social Security benefit.
Exactly. And the first things you're probably wondering are pretty straightforward. Could this $495 payment be coming soon? And who would actually be eligible to get this extra cash? Those are the big questions we've been seeing and the ones we need to address.
And those are the questions that matter most to you. So let's tackle them head on. In your expert opinion, how realistic is this $495 one-time payment? Is this something our listeners should expect to see in their accounts anytime soon?
To be completely honest, my assessment of this specific proposal as it stands right now is that it's 100% unrealistic and not happening anytime soon.
Okay. That's a pretty clear-cut answer. So can you walk us through the main reasons why this $495 payment is so unlikely to actually happen for our listeners?
Sure. There are a couple of big hurdles here. The first one is the massive scale of overpayment recovery that the Social Security Administration is dealing with. Right now, we're talking about tens of billions of dollars in overpayments that they're trying to get back. Just the practical challenges of finding, tracking down, and recovering that huge amount of money are enormous. It's not like they can just flip a switch and get those funds back. But what are some of the biggest challenges they face in actually recovering those billions in overpayments?
Yeah, I imagine there are a lot of logistical nightmares involved in that process.
Absolutely. And that brings us to the second and maybe even more important point, which is about the logic behind the proposal itself. The Social Security Administration is sometimes going to extremes to recover these overpayments, including reinstating 100% garnishments of benefits. If they're going after these clawbacks so aggressively, does it really make sense that they would then turn around and give everyone a relatively small one-time payment of $495? It just seems contradictory. The intense effort they're putting into the aggressive recovery doesn't really line up with giving such a small one-time payment. It makes you question the efficiency and the whole point of it all, don't you think?
It does. It makes you wonder if the administrative costs alone would make it worth it. So considering how unlikely this one-time payment is, are there any other more promising ways for beneficiaries to see increased financial benefits? This brings us to an alternative you've proposed, the SSA Savings Supplement. Can you tell us more about how this idea could actually put more money in our listeners' pockets?
Yeah. The idea behind the SSA Savings Supplement comes from looking at the bigger picture of how efficiently our entitlement programs are running. You've probably heard discussions about the potentially huge amounts of wasted money within these systems, like the estimations of 500, 700 billion a year of waste within entitlement programs, including Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. If there's that much waste, why hasn't anyone addressed it before? What are the potential sources of these inefficiencies?
Wow, that's a crazy amount of potential savings. So the main idea of your SSA savings supplement is to tap into some of these efficiencies and give that money back to the beneficiaries.
Exactly. The SSA Savings Supplement proposes a three-tiered approach to give a portion of these identified savings directly to beneficiaries in the form of monthly increases. This isn't just a one-time thing. It's a consistent boost to your monthly income.
Having a consistent monthly increase would definitely provide more financial stability than a one-time lump sum. How would this three-tiered system work to get more money to different beneficiaries?
The plan has three potential levels of monthly benefit increases. Some beneficiaries could get an extra $300 per month, others a $200 per month raise, and a third group a $100 per month increase. While the specifics of which tier someone would fall into need to be worked out, it would likely depend on their current benefit level. The goal is to give more help to those with lower incomes. Even an extra $100 a month could make a real difference for someone on a fixed income.
Right. Absolutely. An extra 100, 200, or even $300 every month would significantly improve the financial well-being of so many beneficiaries.
Yeah, it would. And to give you an idea of the potential financial benefits we're talking about, the SSA Savings Supplement proposal aims to redistribute $12.456 billion. This amount is roughly about one-fifth to one-seventh of the total amount of money they've identified within these entitlement programs. So it's not about completely changing the entire system or giving away all the estimated wasted money, but focusing on a significant and achievable portion of it.
So instead of that unlikely one-time $495 payment, your proposal offers the potential for a much bigger and importantly recurring increase in monthly income. It's interesting to compare the two, a one-time potential boost versus a steady monthly benefit.
Exactly. And while I commend the Senior Citizens League for advocating for beneficiaries
Ah.
and understand the appeal of a direct payment, I honestly believe that their specific proposal has some serious practical challenges that make it unlikely to happen.
It's important to recognize that advocacy groups are vital in these discussions, for sure. Now, switching gears a bit, we've talked about how unlikely the $495 payment is. But what about some of the other ideas that our listeners might be hearing about? Things like a $5,000 or the $2,500 Doge dividend or stimulus check. How do those possibilities stack up in terms of likelihood of actually giving beneficiaries more money?
It's interesting. When you compare the very specific $495 proposal, which is tied to that complicated overpayment recovery process, to these broader, more general ideas like a $5,000 or $2,500 Doge dividend or stimulus check, I actually think these larger scale possibilities are significantly more likely to happen than that $495 payment.
Really? That's surprising. Why would those larger, seemingly more ambitious payments be considered more likely to benefit our listeners?
The reasoning lies in the mechanisms that would probably drive those payments. These bigger stimulus-style payments would typically happen in response to wider economic conditions or specific policy decisions aimed at giving widespread financial relief. We've seen examples in the past where the government has enacted economic stimulus measures. That put a lot of money directly into people's pockets, while the chances of any specific amount happening are always uncertain and depend on a range of economic and political factors. The existing frameworks and political will for these broad-based interventions might be more readily available than a very specific redistribution tied to the complexities of Social Security overpayment recovery. So while maybe less directly linked to the Social Security system itself, these larger potential payments operate on a different level of economic and political possibility for providing significant financial benefit.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So while the $495 proposal is very narrowly focused and has those internal contradictions, these bigger ideas, even though they're less specific to Social Security, could actually offer a more substantial financial boost because of broader economic or policy initiatives. Now, the Senior Citizens League mentioned that the $495 payment could be linked to a lackluster 2026 QLA. Does that timing give us any more clues about when, even hypothetically, this might actually happen and when our listeners might see this extra money?
Yeah, mentioning the 2026 KLA does suggest a time frame that the Senior Citizens League might have had in mind. However, like we've already discussed, the fundamental problems with the proposal itself, like the huge overpayment recovery effort and the illogical step of then giving a small one-time payment, still pose major obstacles. So while they might have been thinking of next year in connection with KLA, it's really important for our listeners to understand that this is based on a very shaky foundation. The chances of this $495 payment actually happening in 2026 or anytime soon are honestly very low, based on the data and the contradictions within the proposal itself. The focus should really be on more realistic ways to increase financial benefits.
All right, so let's sum it all up for you guys. The idea of an extra $495 suddenly showing up in your account is definitely nice. But the expert opinion here is that it's highly unlikely because of how difficult it is to recover those massive amounts of overpaid funds and the questionable logic of that recovery leading to such a small one-time payment. However, the conversation about increasing benefits for Social Security beneficiaries is definitely happening, with alternative ideas like your proposed monthly SSA Savings Supplement, which offers the potential for a much larger and consistent income boost, and even the possibility of bigger, more general stimulus-style payments down the road.
That's a good summary. The main point is that while the specific $495 proposal faces some serious challenges, the goal of improving the financial security of Social Security recipients is valid and important. My SSA Savings Supplement focuses on unlocking and redistributing existing resources within the entitlement programs on a monthly basis, which could make a much more meaningful and lasting difference in beneficiaries' financial well-being. There really is a significant amount of potential savings and efficiencies within the system that could be given back to beneficiaries.
And as you pointed out, the estimated amount of potential waste within these systems is huge, hundreds of billions of dollars every year. The big question then is, what's the most effective and realistic way to tap into those potential savings and make sure that money reaches the people who need it most?
Exactly. It's about looking past those short-term solutions and finding sustainable ways to provide long-term financial security and improve the lives of Social Security beneficiaries.
So while the idea of an unexpected deposit is certainly appealing, what do you think is the most realistic and impactful way to make sure Social Security beneficiaries get more financial benefits in the future? What kind of change would make the biggest difference in your financial well-being? For those of you who want to learn more about the SSA Savings Supplement, including its potential for a $300 monthly raise and the other tiered increases, we recommend checking out a previous deep dive titled $300 Monthly Raise Social Security SSA Savings Supplement from a few weeks back. It gives a more detailed explanation of that specific proposal and how it could potentially boost your monthly income.
Yeah, that deep dive really breaks down the potential impact of the SSA Savings Supplement and how it can make a real difference in your monthly budget.
So until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and as always, thanks for joining us on the deep dive.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care.